It's JJ's turn for bold takes. It's time for garbage time. Guys, welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. Tonight we have JJ's bold takes in the second in this four-part anthology of Fantasy Football bold takes. How are you doing tonight, JJ?
Doing well. I'm currently on vacation with the in-laws in Las Vegas, so it's actually only 5 o'clock here. So after this, I'll be doing some swimming and eating some dinner, so life is good.
Very nice. Looks like you're taking the podcast on the road. He's a working man on the road.
We're ramping back up. It's time for OTAs and training camp. So, I show up for voluntary mini camps unlike Ron.
All right, guys, if you like what you hear on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, make sure to like and to subscribe to the show here on YouTube. And if you're shy and got to listen in alternate formats, putting that earbud in, you can listen to us on Spotify, Tunein, Iheartradio, Amazon, Pandora now, Apple, and Google. And make sure to leave us voice and hate mails at www.garbagetimeff.com like Angry Christian does. JJ, do you have any response to what Angry Christian had to say to us last week?
Not much. I heard a rumor that he tried to tweet at me, but I have not gotten anything. I think he's a little intimidated by me, so he's probably just too nervous to tag me on Twitter. But make sure you get it right under my name here, Christian.
Yeah, and guys, if you want to leave messages too, like JJ said, you can tweet at Garbage Time Fantasy Football at @garbage_time_FF. We're also on Instagram at Garbage Time Fantasy Football too. Without further ado, JJ, you ready to get into some heavy news tonight?
Absolutely.
News updates.
All right, we're going to alternate back and forth here tonight. So first little bit of news we have tonight. I made a YouTube short that also went on Instagram Reels, hating on the fish a little bit this morning. So there was an interesting report coming out of Tyreek's mouth, Andrew Rosenhaus, who stated that Hill was unhappy, felt disrespected, and I quote, said, if teams are not going to give favorable matchups against their best corners, I don't see why teams don't utilize their best receivers. And he also said something about Tua Tagovailoa being a more accurate quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. So what's your thoughts on this, JJ?
He's writing a lot of checks right now with his mouth, and we'll see if Tua can cash them for him. We know Tua loves Jalen Waddle. So I don't know. I personally am not a fan of Tyreek's interviews as of late. I think he's kind of digging himself into a little bit of hole that he's going to have to climb out. But we'll see. I would not characterize Tua at this point in time as a more accurate quarterback than Mahomes, but that's just me.
Yeah, you can't, determine someone to be a more accurate quarterback if they can't throw more than 8 yards down the field. And I actually faded Tyreek Hill this morning too in that YouTube short where I said, at his current ADP in the late first round, I really don't like him there, and I would fade him to the back end of the second round. And this is something, if he doesn't end up being very happy, he's at that age where I think he is going to make his own choices and wants to be where he wants to be. And it could blow up in the Dolphins' face if they don't get him the ball, and they don't get him the ball frequently, I think, there.
Yeah, I really don't like his ADP. He's being drafted like Mahomes is still his quarterback, and he's now in a completely different system with a lower tier quarterback, obviously, and in a system that is not crazy pass happy. It's one of the run heaviest schemes in the league. So I'm not drafting Tyreek Hill anywhere unless his ADP falls down into the, I don't even know, third round maybe.
Fair enough. All right, what's your first little bit of news that you have on your side?
So my news is the Broncos backfield. It's been heavily discussed, but Melvin Gordon, a quote just came out that he's not going to lay down with the running back competition. He said a lot of people think he's just going to step aside for Javonte Williams, but he said he's there to play. So My question for you is, and I've heard this talked about a lot last couple of weeks, is Javonte Williams being taken too high with as much of a committee as it was last year and how close they finished in fantasy points?
Well, Melvin Gordon's not going to have to lay down in this competition because both of these boys are going to get a participation trophy and everybody's going to win. It's going to continue to be a committee. Yes, Javonte Williams is being drafted too high, and look for his stats to be very similar to last year, even with them bringing in Russell Wilson. There's a lot of mouths to feed there too. They brought Melvin Gordon back for a reason. It was successful in the backfield. They had good usage out of both the backs, so why change the formula? So unfortunately, fantasy football owners are going to suffer for it this year.
Yeah, it's a good football formula, but it's a bad fantasy football formula. So
good for the Broncos fans, bad for the fantasy owners. Next little bit of news I have here too was Washington Post Nick Jabavala, I think I butchered his name, reports that Commanders and contract year Terry McLaurin are very far apart on contract extensions. Is this concerning to dynasty owners of Terry McLaurin? Does this do anything to his ADP if he doesn't get into camp and get some chemistry with Carson Wentz?
I don't think so. Oh boy. I think he could either get traded or we'll get his extension. I don't see him holding out into the season. I would not be surprised if he got moved. You saw the Commanders just take a receiver in the first round. Mm-hmm. So they have him. They took De'Ami Brown, I think, in the third round last year. Obviously, still have Logan Thomas. So they have some targets there. And if they can get enough for him, I wouldn't be surprised if he got traded. He's a former second-round pick. If a team like maybe the Bears comes calling with a first-round pick and an extension offer, I could definitely see him getting moved somewhere.
I can see that, especially if like the Bears maybe rallied off a few wins like in the first few weeks and they go, we've actually got something here. So maybe let's try to trade for a receiver and see if we can actually go for it this year. I don't know if he'll get traded in training camp, but I think he's an interesting person to evaluate before the trade deadline. What's your next little bit of news?
So next news I had, Allen Lazard signed his restricted free agent tender when he showed up to Green Bay's camp. OTAs. So do you think that Allen Lazard is going to be the clear-cut wide receiver one now with the Packers now that the contract stuff is behind him, at least for this year?
I honestly do believe he's going to be the clear-cut number one. Christian Watson is a rookie. He's going to need to create some chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, who typically in the past hasn't had a lot of chemistry with young wide receivers right away. He tends to like to go towards those veterans that he has more of a chemistry with. So I think that's going to fall more on Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. I think Sammy Watkins will suffer for that reason too. Not that he will ever stay on the field anyway. So I think Allen Lazard fields above all these other wide receivers as being the number one. I liked Ryan's assessment of saying, actually, it may have been your assessment, saying where he'd get about 1,000 yards. I think it was 1,006 yards and was it 8 TDs?
Yeah, you got it.
I could really see that being his outcome this year. And at his current ADP in the 8th or 9th round, he could be a hell of a value for you. So I like what you had to say about Allen Lazard, and he's going to be someone I'm going to be targeting in our drafts, I think. Okay. Next little bit of news that we have here is Mike Reese believes there is potential to see improvement in Mac Jones's passing game. Is this big offseason material? And do you believe that?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't really see it. Bill Belichick's still the coach. I think it's still going to be a conservative approach where they try and establish a run and play good defense and don't turn the ball over, which he did a pretty good job of last year. So I don't think the formula is going to change too much, especially if Matt Patricia is calling the plays. Obviously, as a historically defensive guy. So I don't
historically.
Yeah, except for Mitch Trubisky, who had his number for some reason. Anyways, yeah, I don't think Mac Jones, especially with the weapons he has right now, is going to lead some explosive offense. I think they'll be in the 20s or the middle of the pack with, like I said, a conservative run-first approach.
So you, at this point, don't see Mac Jones as being anything more than a number 2 quarterback in Superflex leagues and a viable streaming quarterback?
That's right, yes.
That's about my evaluation for him, too. I mean, we've been wrong before with New England quarterbacks, and I hope that's not the case here. What else you got for us?
Really, the last thing I had is just a quick little rumor that Juju is saying he could see himself back in Pittsburgh as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I wanted to ask you what your outlook is on him this year, if you buy in or if you think he's just going to be a one-hit wonder in Kansas City.
Well, the first problem with that outlook is Kansas City is not in Pittsburgh. So that may be a little bit of a problem. But, yeah, I could see him returning to Kansas City if he's viable this year. But he's not the person that got the 3-year contract there. And for some reason, teams aren't willing to commit to him, regardless of him still producing. I mean, he's not that 1,400-yard receiver that we saw when Antonio Brown was there. I think that's pretty clear. But he's talented. He's more of that Jamison Crowder kind of wide receiver that can bring you somewhere between 700 to 900 yards and get in the end zone for you. He can move the chains for you. So he's going to be highly productive for you. And he's got opportunities in that Kansas City backfield. So in that wide receiving core, if he creates a chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, I could see him coming back on a little bit of a deal, maybe another 2-year contract. But I don't see him being the breakout candidate here in Kansas City.
Okay.
Next thing I've got up here is apparently the Giants are moving Saquon Barkley all over the formations in OTA. They just experimenting with him, or are they going to look to run this guy into the ground next year?
This kind of ties into one of my takes, so I'm gonna zip it on this one and let you give your analysis on this.
We'll also zip here because if this is going to go into your takes, I want to get your bold take.
All right.
Because I also want to be able to shit on it too. What do you think about Robbie Anderson's tweet saying he was potentially thinking about retiring? Is this just someone that's, about to reach 30, frustrated that Sam Darnold's his quarterback? We saw the sideline arguments with him, and he just doesn't want to be on the Panthers anymore.
Robbie Anderson off the field is always in the news for the wrong reasons. So
he's emotional.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I think he'll play this year. He's got a generous contract for the production that he has right now, and that some of that is probably his quarterback, obviously. But I don't see him sitting out this year. But I think he is frustrated with the quarterback stuff. I know he thought Watson was going to be his quarterback at one point, and he doesn't want Baker Mayfield to come there. So who knows?
You think he'd get up for Jimmy G?
More than Sam Darnold, probably. He'd probably be a little happier.
What about Matt Corral, the rookie? You think that excite him a little bit more, or do you think that would just drive him right into retirement?
I'm not a big Matt Corral guy, so I don't think he's the answer there either. I think their quarterback's probably in next year's draft. So,
what do you think this would do to the Panthers wide receiving core if Robbie Anderson retired?
If Robbie Anderson retired, I think Terrace Marshall would probably benefit the most. He's kind of a question mark right now. But it seems like he's kind of clicking more with the offense this year. So I've heard some good things out of Carolina's OTAs about Marshall. But if Robbie Anderson's out of the way and some more targets open up, I think he would probably be the one that benefits the most.
Do you see what kind of formula do you see Terrace Marshall playing if he retired? Would he stay to the slot or the outside? Break down what kind of a wide receiver he kind of is for the Panthers. What style does he play in?
He'd probably do both. Like LSU, he kind of had the Justin Jefferson role too. They were kind of interchangeable, moving inside and outside. Both are considered great route runners. So I think they'd move him around quite a bit, and he'd probably play wherever they needed him. Like if they had a guy that emerged more on the outside, they'd probably slide him in the slot. And if they have a guy they like in the slot, they'd move him outside. Either way, he'd start for him. So I think he's a good player. He's just in a less than ideal situation right now.
Until they draft another quarterback next year?
Yeah, we'll see. And maybe get a new coaching staff.
Just based on this news, do you move him up dynasty board slightly then right now, or would you actually have to see something happen to Robbie Anderson?
I probably wouldn't move him that much.
We have someone from the Heckling Fandom here. It's Fabian Vasquez. He says, yo, Fabian, if you have any questions for Garbage Time Fantasy Football tonight, feel free to jump into the comments and throw them our way or just yell at us because that's what a lot of our voicemail people do anyway. So more than happy to take the abuse if that's what you're going to throw out.
I am here to give you the hot takes, so feel free to shit on him.
Yeah, he is the victim tonight, so feel free to shit on them if you'd like to. Nice little bit of news tonight is, according to Roto World, Jimmy G and Jimmy Garoppolo may be expected to be released in the next few weeks or before training camp. So what's your evaluation on this? Could either of them be released? Both of them? None of them?
I don't know. It's I think the Browns would probably wait further on Mayfield with the whole Watson thing playing out. I have to imagine the decision's going to come soon. And if it does, I think they're probably going to try and get on their hands and knees and beg them to play the season. But
it's kind of like that online meme where, they have Deshaun Watson there, and then all of a sudden you have your boss and your manager texting you from home saying, we're really short tonight. Would you mind coming back into work? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Just, absolutely bad for you. And I don't see, Baker coming back to play for them. So that's really disappointed for the Browns fans that are going to have to deal with potentially their star quarterback being out for at least a little bit of the season, I think, up at this point. Fabian of the Heckling Fandom is asking us if we can rate his team. Yes, absolutely. If you put it in the comments over here, we're more than absolutely able to rate your team. So, yes, Coach JJ will rate your team.
We will.
Nice little bit of news we have here, too, is something that happened late in the week, but we have not covered. Cooper Kupp gets a new $80 million 3-year extension, which comes out to about $26,700,000 a year. What's your thoughts on this Cooper Kupp contract, and how the hell do the Rams keep avoiding the salary cap?
They just keep pushing things back. So in 2 to 3 years, when the dynasty crumbles, it's going to crumble hard. It's around when Aaron Donald will retire and Kupp will be older and Stafford will be older and everyone will be ready to go. And it's going to be a long rebuild, but they just keep pushing the contracts back. So good for Cooper Kupp. Obviously had a historically awesome season, fantasy and NFL wise. So very, very much deserved for him.
Yeah, they're going to be the New Orleans Saints here in a few years where they just kept kicking the can down the road, although the New Orleans Saints also have no money but seem to be trying to reload here. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Rams do in a few years. But in the short term, they're a Super Bowl contender. And Cooper Kupp is the number 1 wide receiver for fantasy football right now. And the only one to challenge him is JaMarr Chase and Justin Jefferson currently. So those are your top 3, and pick your flavor, I guess. And I think with that, because you have no more news, JJ, we're ready to get into those bold takes, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Don't worry, I don't have a shitty draw for you, so just go ahead and get into your first bold take of the night.
Okay. I am going to start with Pat Freiermuth. Just give a little background. Second-year tight end with the Steelers, obviously. Had a great rookie year with Big Ben at QB. He's currently ranked tight end 10 with a 104 ADP. My prediction is Pat Freiermuth is a top 3 fantasy tight end. And before I let you get into this, I want to correct something that Ron said. He was shitting on your takes during your bold prediction episode. These are not open to freezing cold takes because they're bold predictions. They're supposed to be fun. No repercussions for these. Just guys that you're high on that you think could explode and maybe be a league winner. So I'm saying Pat Freiermuth will be a top 3 fantasy tight end. What's your initial thoughts on this?
Well, I think Pat Freiermuth's got talent, and an immense amount of talent. I am a big fan of Pat Freiermuth. We kind of saw exuberantly that talent come out in his rookie year, which doesn't happen for a lot of tight ends. So in an offense that had a lot of weapons at wide receiver, for him to show out when there was actually another tight end in that offense too is telling. So I don't think this is out of the realm of possibilities for Pat Freiermuth. But let me ask you my next question. Who's the quarterback that's going to get him into the top 3, and why is that quarterback going to get him into the top 3?
So a lot of the discussion, obviously, James Washington's gone, Juju's gone. It's been Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. However, when you look at the two quarterbacks, you have Mitch Trubisky, who in his career thrived early when he had Zach Miller, who was his favorite target. He liked Trey Burton. He loved Jimmy G. He's a big tight end guy. So it's, he looks to the tight end a lot historically. And then you have Kenny Pickett. Who do rookie quarterbacks lean on a lot? Tight end position. So I've seen a couple mic'd up clips with the two giving each other a hard time bonding. I think whoever the QB is, fire me, it's going to be their safety blanket. And obviously the tight end position is a dumpster fire. And top three is a different tier in itself, but I just think he is very talented and in a position to get more targets than people think. So
you're telling me right now he could have potentially more fantasy points this year than maybe a Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Schultz, Zach Ertz,
Darren Waller,
Kyle Pitts. There's
he
a lot
could.
of guys. There's a lot
That's
of guys.
Bold. It's bold, Joe. It's bold.
I
agree. There's a lot of guys, and maybe guys that are a little bit more athletic and talented, but I just think he's, plays in a tough division. I think he get in some higher scoring games. I think Freiermuth's in for a good year. And 3 is, he's currently tight end 10. So top 5 is, I'm trying to be more bold. So I went up to 3. 5 maybe is a little more realistic, but we're going top 3. I think he has a good year.
All right, I would call this an intermediate bold take. I'm not shitting on this. It's all right. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but for him to have more fantasy points than Kelce and Andrews, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he would have to be 3. I mean, I could see him having a bigger year potentially than Kyle Pitts, slightly, but 9 out of 10 times, I think I would take Kyle Pitts having a bigger year. And there's a bunch of other guys that could have big years too. I think this is going to be a good year for tight ends, honestly. There's a lot of ones that could have potentially good outlooks. All right, Fabian Vasquez is now in the comments, sent us his teams. And Coach LaPlante, he wants us to rate this team. So I'll read this out for the heckling fandom that are listening to us in audio format.
Oh, right.
And while you're going through this, you rate this. How about we'll do it on a scale of 1 to 10, okay?
Well,
Fabian, go ahead.
Is this Dynasty or is it redraft?
Yeah, we also have to know, Fabian, what kind of league is this? Is this a Dynasty, redraft, and is this a 2-quarterback league, 1-quarterback league? Give us a little bit more detail here. So as we read out these names, we'll go over your roster a little bit too. So starting off, he's got Kyler Murray at quarterback. A lot of potential going into this year for that. Christian McCaffrey, who hasn't had a season-ending injury the last few years, but has been plagued by many injuries, so there's a lot of potential here with that. Nick Chubb is Mr. Consistency for the Browns. I like that. He's got Hill, Keenan Allen. Who are you drafting with, Fabian? Because it seems like you're getting a lot of top players. This must be a dynasty league. TJ Hawkinson, who is a good tight end, but could be a little bit overvalued this year. Metcalf, who lost his quarterback, and Russell Wilson this year. He's got Gay, the Commanders D, and his bench is D-Hop, which is on a 6-game suspension this year. Juju, who's got a lot of potential there with the Chiefs. We already talked about him this episode. Jarvis Landry, Pat Freiermuth, which you've already talked about being a potentially good tight end this year, and A.J. Dillon. So this is a very nice roster with a lot of depth. What's your thoughts on this roster, JJ?
He just said it's a PPR redraft. So pull up the roster again. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how it must be a keeper league. I'm trying to think, like, obviously McCaffrey would be the first round, Chubb the second round, Hill the third round, Allen the fourth round. But then Metcalf, yeah, it must be a keeper league. That's a solid squad. I was going to say if it's Dynasty, it's definitely a win now mode with like McCaffrey and Chubb and Keenan Allen. But yeah, I like this roster a lot. I think definitely a playoff team. I don't really see any holes. Like, you're deep at running back with Chubb and McCaffrey, and I love A.J. Dillon this year, which I talked about on our NFC North preview. And then receiver, you got Tyreek, Keenan Allen, and Metcalf. So
there's really nowhere to hate on this roster. Not many spots that you could improve on. at this point, it's just about the matchups and you putting in the right players because there's a lot of interchangeable parts, even with your bench and your starters. So just getting the lineups right, I would give this roster a 9 out of 10. It's a fantastic roster there, Fabian.
Yeah, it's pretty good for redraft.
Especially in a 10-man league. Yeah, no, Fabian, good job with this roster. All right, JJ, you ready for your second bold take?
Yes. So my second bold take, it's a guy I'm very high on. I have Hollywood Brown, who's currently wide receiver 25. He's 55 ADP. He was taken in the 5th round or so, 6th round in 10-man league. I think he will be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver in 2022.
I don't even think this is a bold take. I think this is one of your soft ass takes because that's easy. He's going to an offense where the pie is a lot bigger. He's shown that he can be an explosive wide receiver in fantasy football. I mean, Kyler Murray is just a flat out better passer than Lamar Jackson. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Hopkins is suspended for 6 games. They've got young receivers there, which could potentially produce, but some of those weapons are gone. You know, Jacksonville got robbed down there at the wide receiver position. So, I mean, yeah, Christian Kirk just absolutely robbed them, which is good. He's got a good agent. I'm happy for him. But yeah, no, there's absolutely no way in hell that he doesn't end up in the top 10 of fantasy wide receivers this year. So thanks for bringing that soft ass take, but I have no doubt he breaks the top 10.
25. That's outside wide receiver 2 territory.
Yeah, but here at Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we love
5?
it.
All right, I'm changing it to top 5.
All right, that's a little bit more.
Is that a little spicier?
That's a little spicier. I don't think he finishes in the top 5, but
so
that 5 to 10 range.
His last season at Oklahoma, he played with Kyler. He had 1,318 yards and 10 touchdowns. I think he could easily get that, and that's going to be top 5 in fantasy.
All right, so what's the chemistry that he has with Kyler, though? What makes this a top 10 combo here, especially with DeAndre Hopkins potentially coming back after week 6?
I really feel like Hopkins, just watching him last year, he's lost his step. He's year after year with almost 100 catches. He's been historically good after the catch. He's just taking a beating. I think, you know, he had the PED issue. I think that's probably was an attempt to try and recover from some of the injuries he's tried to play through over the years. So I think he's really worn down. I just think Hollywood Brown is not only Kyler's friend, but they've played historically well together in college. And I think he fits Kyle Kingsbury's scheme very well. So I just think it's a match made in heaven.
I absolutely love this take. I mean, it's soft as baby shit take, I think, on Garbage Time Fantasy Football because we all love him. But I guess for a tough take, which we'll say this is a tough take in the fantasy football universe, I guess we can consider this as something that not all fantasy football owners are thinking of potentially for outlooks for Hollywood Brown.
Okay, well, man, I got to step up my game here.
All right, Fabian's got another question for us too, so let's have a quick intermission with him. Fabian asks, the Heckling Fandom, also have Trey Lance as a quarterback too. How do you feel about him? Well, Fabian, in our first Bold Takes episode, which was me last week, I said that Trey Lance could potentially be a top 5 quarterback for fantasy football this upcoming 2022 season. For the given reason that I believe he's got a good deep ball, he runs in a good offense, has a good offensive line, and he calls his own name in the red zone. So he's got potential to score a lot of touchdowns, and I think he's a better passer than Lamar Jackson, and will show that this year. I am big on Trey Lance this year, and if you can keep him in auction league, which I very well may if he's shown to be the starter there in San Francisco, he could be a steal for you, and I think value-wise and redraft, he could win you leagues. What's your thoughts on Trey Lance?
What did you get him for in the auction league?
I believe $3.
So here's my thing. So I have a keeper league where you can keep a player drafted after the 6th round.
Yeah.
And I could keep Justin Fields, who I think is going to have a decent year. My thought with that is, before he has a breakout, throw him back, get him for cheaper again this year, and then you have him cheap this year and next year before the breakout happens and his price skyrockets. You think you think the hype is too much on Lance where you're going to have to pay, say, $10 or more for him?
No, I don't think so. Not in auction leagues.
Yeah, because we saw like Rodgers and Russell Wilson going for $2 and $3 in the range that Lance will go this year. So
yeah, but I mean, I didn't pay 10 for him. I paid 3, so he's at the range I want to keep him at.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll see if I throw him back in the pool. I've got some thoughts on what I'm going to do. I'm stuck. So I'm definitely keeping Mark Andrews at the tight end position in our keeper league in the auction. I mean, that's a given, especially at the field they traded him for too. And I think I'm stuck between Hollywood Brown and Trey Lance as my other keeper currently. So it'll be interesting to see what I do because I also got him fairly cheap too. So I don't really know what I'm going to do up to this point because, I mean, the quarterback position is also plentiful, but I have a man crush on Trey Lance as I did with Brandon Ayuk last year, and that blew up in my face. So maybe I'll make the more practical move.
Now that I know Hollywood Brown's the other guy you're considering keeping, I would definitely keep Trey Lance.
Why? Because I ended up with Hollywood Brown for $2 in our auction league. Going cheap, maybe.
Yeah, Fabian. Anyways, our last bold predictions episode, Joe preached his love for Trey Lance. I believe you said he could be a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year, which definitely possible the running ability, but
professed my love.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're ready for your next bold take.
All right, next bold take. Try and get a little spicier here. So, let me just say it. So, Bengals obviously have one of the most prolific offenses in the league now, with their 2 star wide receivers, JaMarr Chase and Tee Higgins. Chase obviously is a consensus top 5 pick in PPR and top 5 in ADP. So Higgins is currently the wide receiver 13 and number 35 in ADP. My bold take is that he finishes 2022 with more fantasy points than JaMarr Chase.
That is bold as hell for you to say that. You honestly think that could happen?
I do. I think he could really reap the benefits of having JaMarr Chase. And if you look back at the games that Chase had a monster game, Higgins was right there with him. It's like when Joe Burrow's cooking, they're both reaping the benefits. So I think Chase is he had so many huge chunk plays. I don't know if he can replicate that again. I think he could regress. And I think Higgins can stay consistent in his game and garner a few more targets and be obviously a red zone target like Chase. So I think I wrote down next to Higgins' name 2019 Chris Godwin. I think he's right around 1,400 yards, and I think he's going to score 10 touchdowns.
Holy shit. Literally shit. Well, that is a bold take. That is an absolute shit take because JaMarr Chase is going to finish in the top 3 of wide receivers just on that freaking talent. There's a better comparison here for Tee Higgins, and I heard it on another podcast, and I like it. He's basically the Kareem Hunt of wide receivers where he's going to be a wide receiver 1, but at the 12 spot every single year. I really do like Tee Higgins. That take is just a little too spicy for me, and that's why it's the first shit take of the night. Yeah, and it's a shit take. Don't get me wrong. I think Tee Higgins is a true number 1 wide receiver. I mean, last year, 115.7 points in fantasy. That was good for 12 or 13, depending on your outbreak. And, I mean, week 16, he had a 43-point breakout, too. So he's got that ability to break out in games if you need him to, too. But the true question are the Bengals going to throw at 56% of passes next year too, or are they going to get Joe Mixon involved a little bit more? Because I don't know if that culpability of passing goes all of Tee Higgins' way, or if they go to the guy that got him to the Super Bowl, honestly, JaMarr Chase. He's insanely talented, and he's the guy that can get you 200 yards.
I think the split will be pretty similar. I mean, they really bolstered their offensive line in the offseason. Now, this is assuming that the Super Bowl loser curse doesn't hit them, because historically, the team that loses the Super Bowl regresses the next year. But they really added to the line. I love their offseason. And they lost Uzama. They did bring in Hayden Hurst, but I don't see him being a huge part of the offense. So I really think I really like Higgins this year.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do too. And I think he's someone that you could solidly throw at the back end of the wide receiver ones.
So he's wide receiver 13, number 35 ADP. So you think he's right where he should be then?
Yeah, 12, 13 range, I think is absolutely perfect for him, especially in an offense that's only going to keep elevating and changing its style up over the next few years. I think Joe Mixon gets thrown into the game a little bit more too. But yeah, no, he's right where he needs to be. He kind of reminds me of someone that's going to be Keenan Allen in a few years, just Mr. Consistent doing this year after year after year. I really like Tee Higgins going forward too. So let's go to the Fabian intermission. He's got another question for us. Fabian asks, Tua breakout season? Well, I already kind of answered this at the beginning of the episode by shitting on this. So, JJ, I'll let you answer this one. Is this going to be a Tua breakout season?
It's either a Tua breakout season or a Tua's on the street season because they gave him absolutely everything. Weapons for days. They brought in the number one offensive tackle in free agency. They brought in a stable of running backs to help support him. If he's worth a shit, he's going to have a good year because he's surrounded with brilliant offensive minds, weapons, and now a much improved offensive line. So I would say yes, though I don't have him in my top 15. So I guess for Tua,
it's not a breakout then.
Yeah, but for him, I mean, for what he's done, I know Joe hates Tua, so he's going to say negative things.
There's no fucking way he's going to have a breakout this year, and he's going to be on the street and going to be a career backup after this year. Tua needs to get a new social media team for the Miami Dolphins. For them to put out that clip of him throwing the deep ball and Tyreek having to come back to it, that is not shit you put on Instagram or on social media. I mean, that was just asking to be roasted, and it was nice that the Jets weren't being roasted for once and it was the Dolphins. Second off, I'm sorry, Tyreek, you have to put up with that, but it's going to be a tough year for you. Just be ready to be 8-9. That's your ceiling, and that's what you're probably going to get.
All right, well, you heard it. Tua sucks.
Fucking sucks. Next take, JJ.
Well, let me say this before we move on.
Okay.
I think Tua finishes the year with more fantasy points than Zach Wilson.
That's disgusting, and I should just kick you out of this.
Apology bet.
I'll apology bet that.
All right.
Hit the button.
I can't.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you're a guest tonight because you're from
computer.
Vegas. I guess I'll have to hit the button, huh? Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll apology bet that shit. We have to keep track of all these apology bets. So now I've got the one with Ron. I've also got the one with Little Hands, Pittsburgh quarterback starting over, Mitch Trubisky now with you. And now I've got my guy having more fantasy points than Tua this year. So 3 apology bets and more to come before the season, I'm sure. What's your next bold take?
All right, so Saquon Barkley, currently running back 14, number 23 in ADP. I think Saquon Barkley will have 2,000 all-purpose yards this season. And he's not going to return, so really, I mean, rushing and receiving yards combined, 2,000 yards. With Brian Daboll as the new head coach of the Giants, he's in a contract year. You just read in the news section that he's been moving all around formations, looking to catch passes. So I think he will have himself a great little season and potentially be a league winner. Roast me.
This is my favorite take that you've made tonight.
Oh.
So actually, I made another YouTube short on this a few weeks ago where I was talking about Saquon Barkley being undervalued because Evan Neal is now on that Giants offensive line. They have brought in Daboll, who likes to run the ball, and they've got to get that damn ball out of Daniel Jones' hand because Daniel Jones sucks ass. And if they want any potential to be decent this year, Saquon Barkley is going to run the rock with them. Not only that, Saquon is going into a contract year, and he wants to get paid, so he's going to be very motivated this year. So he needs to show that he's not injury prone. and I think he's going to be in for a fantastic year. And I think 2,000 all-purpose yards for him, that Christian McCaffrey-esque kind of season, is not out of his realm of possibilities. I think this is a good take on your part, JJ.
Yeah, I mean, talent-wise and coaching-wise, I mean, really, to me, we saw him invest in the offensive line, obviously, very early in the draft. So it's just going to come down to health for him. That's been his kryptonite, is health. So hopefully it's something he worked on in the offseason. I think he's probably fully recovered now from the knee. There was a quote from him that he trusts his knee again now, finally. So I'm hoping Barkley has a good year, because I'm gonna end up drafting him on a lot of places, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hang on to him in Dynasty too, because even if he doesn't make it with the Giants, I think he's got potential to be good over the next 3 or 4 years too.
Yeah, he'll go to the Chiefs.
Yeah, and his career will fade off because they keep passing the ball. He'll be the next Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs. I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen to him. Fabian must like your takes too, because he's not roasting you over here. So without the Fabian intermission here, what's your last bold take for the Heckling fandom tonight?
My last bold take, much like yours, is
Let's
a
go.
homer take. Another running back in a contract season, David Montgomery, currently the RB16 for some fucking reason. Number 37 in ADP, so he's going in the 4th round. I have him finishing as a top 3 fantasy running back this year.
All right, your homerism is bleeding through. This is a shit take. Explain to me why you think David Montgomery can finish as a top 3 running back on a team that is going to get the box stacked against them.
Of all running backs in the league, guess which running back has the easiest rated run defense schedule in 2022?
Would that be David Montgomery?
That would be David Montgomery. Chicago Bears have a very easy schedule. He's historically run well against his division opponents. This is a team that wants to run the ball first. And again, he's in his contract year, so they can pound the rock with him with no repercussions and not committed to him long-term as of now. And they can just franchise tag him if he has a great year. So he's already in favor with the coaching staff. And you look who came in to coach the Bears offense. It's Luke Getsy from Green Bay, who also likes to throw the ball to the running backs a lot. And Montgomery's proven himself as a pass catcher. So I think he had over 50 receptions last year. I think he easily surpasses that and obviously gets his touches. I have him getting 300 carries. If he stays healthy, I'm telling you.
This is a shit take because I see David Montgomery as a fringe running back 1, high upside running back 2. So here is a stat that is in favor of what you've said, but there's also another bit of the story to it. So out of 21 backs last year, he had 150 touches or more. Montgomery ranked 10th among running backs for yards after contact. So he's good after contact. But ROI, his rushing yards over expectation, ranked him as an average running back. So he's getting this based on volume and durability. And boy, has he taken a fucking pounding the last few years. You can't expect him to stay healthy every year. And if he's one of the only weapons on that, you're right. But if he's one of the only weapons on that offense, which I would count 2 other weapons on that offense, not your rookie coming out of the senior home as a weapon here too, that durability may be an issue and he may miss 2 or 3 games, which would put him out of the top 3 for this year and put him at that high-end wide receiver 2, very close to running back 2, to close to a running back 1 ranking just based on volume. But that durability would have to hold up for him to even get close to that top 3.
All right. They brought in a fullback. They brought in a run-first coach. I think the scheme favors him. I think the situation favors him. I think the schedule favors him. I think he's in for a big year. We saw when he had what he did when he had that easy schedule in 2020. He finished as RB6 on the year. I see no reason why he can't move up a few more spots.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that is reaching the end of JJ's bold takes. And, well, he didn't have a witch hunt tonight. I think I gave him some things to think about with some of his takes here. And your homerism is allowed to come through on these takes, which is why you were allowed to do that with David Montgomery, as I did that with Jets running backs in the last episode. So, again, these are bold takes. We don't need to jump down people's throats and throw our laptops at them, Ron Seymour. So, guys, if you like what you hear on Garbage Time Fantasy Football,
I'll say this, though, Joe. I'll say this.
All right, let's get this first.
The takes themselves aren't susceptible, but the heated responses could be in the Cold Takes episode if the takes hit. So
what you're saying is mine or Ron in these last two episodes, the responses could be in these following episodes.
Potentially.
Yeah, we're going to have to get your responses to Ryan's and vice versa then, too, so we can get some fresh takes out of you.
I'm waiting for Ryan to schedule it. I'd love to, talk some shit to people. So
yeah, absolutely. I think he's next on deck, and then Ron, after he's put all the statistics out and done the Joe math, will be ready for his bold takes, I think, before the end of the month too. So we'll have to get those out there, and then maybe we can get a 4-person episode and all get some bold takes for us on that.
Remember when that used to happen?
Yeah, that was nice. Maybe we'll get some more closer to the season when we're all on the same schedule.
The podcast should be renamed Joe with Friends.
All right, guys, if you like what you hear on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Fabian, like and subscribe to the show if you're not already subscribed. That's the price of admission for us answering the questions around here. If you'd like to listen to us in audio format, we are on Spotify, Tunein, Iheartradio, Amazon, Pandora, Apple, Google, and anywhere else you get podcasts. And if you're shy and want to send us messages instead of leaving comments below where we also answer the questions, you can do that on Instagram at Garbage Time Fantasy Football, or you can go flirt with JJ on our Garbage_Time FF, Garbage Time Fantasy Football Twitter account, and send your questions there. We'll play them live on the show. We're very interactive with our fans too, so if you want to leave us voicemails, we're more than happy to do that. And Fabian, I think, has another comment here. He says, can you rate my other team as well? Sorry, Fabian, if you give it to us really quick, we're more than happy to rate that team.
Please give it to Joe really quick.
Yeah, so spit it out to us, and then we can get it to you real quick. You can even type them out one at a time, and I'll put them right up on the screen. JJ, so would you consider dropping Justin Fields then, if he was cheap enough? Because you said you would with Trey Lance, but what about Justin Fields while Fabian's getting his team out to us?
I am. In that keeper league, I can keep him. I'm letting him go back for as late as I can get him. I'll wait on quarterback. I'll get one of the lower end QB1s and get Fields too.
What did you pay for?
It wasn't an auction. It's just a redraft. But my point is, I can keep him now when he breaks out, and then next year he'll go higher. Or I can throw him back again this year. He's still going later in drafts. I can get him late again and then be able to keep him after. So then I have the breakout season, and then I get to keep him for another good scoring season the year after.
Yeah, so you can throw him back for that $6 you spent on him and go back and get him at $2. Man, I'm really delaying here as long as I can for you, Fabian. You're going to have to start paying us some overtime over there. That clock is ticking. All right, you know what? I'll put a little ticker on here for him. We have something on here that we added for Ryan, but I think this is appropriate to add it to the corner of the clock, right? We'll give Fabian the 60-second timer. If not, I'll hit the drop. How does that sound?
I like it. A little game out of it.
Oh, so he's got 60 seconds. Oh, maybe we're going to have to answer this in 60 seconds. All right, let's try to answer this in 60 seconds. His team is Wilson, Akers, Gibson, Adams, Diggs, Kelsey, Scary Terry, Packers D, Matt Prater on the bench as a kicker, St. Brown, Hunt, Edmonds, Ayuk, Growl, and Woods. I think he means, what does he mean by Growl?
I don't know.
Anyway, rate this team really quick, JJ. 30
I like
seconds.
Wilson. I like Akers more than Fantasy Football Dad. I like Gibson. His running backs are good, not great, but obviously his receivers are top notch. And he has Kelsey, who I think is the tight end one. Gronk is who he meant.
Yeah, Gronk. Gronk is a good pickup, and he gets good value because he's not on a team and people are overlooking him. So, yeah, no, Gronk is definitely a good add. And it looks like our timer is out. So what grade would you give his team here?
I'd give his first team like a B+, and this team like a B- or C+.
Yeah, your first team, I think, is much better there, Fabian. So, guys, like we said, if you like what you see, like and subscribe to the show. We're coming back tomorrow night for the AFC South breakdown because, you got to do every shitty division, and we got to get this one out of the way. So, yeah, tomorrow is the AFC South Fantasy Football breakdown. Make sure to join us, like and subscribe to the show. And, guys, have a great night. And, JJ, enjoy Vegas.